Well, first you got to look at it and say what's really causing the issue, right? You got to find out what's really going on. What are you really stressed about? What are you holding on to? And I'll tell you something that you're not going to like, as I say it, Matt. But one thing I'll tell people is stop positive thinking.
Ah, interesting.
Positive thinking is breaking people down and it's causing people more ailments and delusions because everyone's looking for positive thinking. And what it does, the truth is, you can't always be positive 100% of the time.
Hmm.
It's not possible. You'll be positive sometimes, you'll be negative sometimes. But if we're always judging ourselves trying to be positive and never negative, then we're going to put ourselves into a box that we can never get out of. So the
That makes
reality
sense.
is that we don't always want to be positive. We want to honor ourselves when we're feeling positive. We want to honor ourselves when we're feeling negative. And what we want to do is we want to rebalance it. What we want is balanced thinking. What we want is the state of governance in our thinking and a state, what I call the aligned state, aligned reason state, where you can actually look at your state and not be torn up or down, high or low, right or wrong, and just kind of be present. And that state of presence, as many people have called it, the flow, the Zen, Mama mentality, whatever you want to call it, that is a scientific process that I take people through now. That it's not just an arbitrary thing that an athlete has to go through. Now I can take people to live there and continue to live there and perform at much higher levels. Dinner table was pretty simple, actually. To be honest with you, it was my dad worked in the afternoons, and I saw Monday through Friday. I didn't really get to spend a whole lot of time with him because I was at school during the day, and my parents structured. I was an only child. My
Mhm.
parents structured it that someone would always be home, so I wouldn't have to be with a babysitter or something like that. And so it was evenings were Monday through Friday were me and my mom, and we'd have dinner. And on the weekends, Dad would be there. So I really look forward to dinners on Saturdays and Sundays with my dad. It was kind of a little thing that was a highlight. It was a little bit of a
Yeah.
highlight for me, for sure.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. And did you have any type of entrepreneurial influences or anything like that growing up, or did that not hit you until a little bit later on in life?
No, my cousins, they opened pharmacies at a young age, uh, at 23 and 24 years old, and I thought that was kind of the way that it worked. And I opened my first practice at 25 years old. And so being an entrepreneur, I mean, I was an entrepreneur at 9 years old. I was literally shoveling snow and getting, on people on the street and up in Toronto, Canada, and shoveling their snows. And all of a sudden I was getting other people to do their contracts and I had buddies of mine doing it. And
Yeah.
I was making some good money at 9 years old. And then I had another business at a young age. And these were businesses, but I mean, there wasn't like organized or anything like that. But there were little things that we were doing just in order to engage the entrepreneurial spirit because I've always been into it.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Love that. So you became a doctor at 25, yes. So I'm assuming you went through college and all of that. And did you open up your own practice then at 25?
I did. So I'd worked with a guy as an independent contractor for about 3 months of in the beginning. And within 3 months, I was seeing three times the patients he was, and literally paying him 70% of all the revenue I was bringing in. I
Oh,
thought, okay,
wow.
this doesn't make any sense. And so I broke ways and started my own deal. And yeah, it started at 25 years old. I had no money, no inkling. Some guy saw my excitement and then as enthusiastic I was about what I did, and said, you know what, I'll give you the space because you'll be successful just based on your excitement. And I had no money. At $8.42 the day I saw my first patient, and by the time 16 months later, I was seeing over 1,250 patient visits a week.
Wow. Wow. How did you grow it so quickly? I mean, was there any, I mean, were you like a marketing savant as well? I mean, how did you spread the word and get people to come that quickly? Is there anything that you can say that, we did this differently than everybody else, or was it just good location, good luck?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. It was me setting the world on fire, really, is what it was. And it was me knowing that I had something that I could help people with, and I wasn't afraid to tell people about it. I would tell people at the grocery store. I'd tell people at the hardware store, at the Home Depot. I'd go anywhere I'd talk to people. I was marketing myself because people, in today's world, people looking at social media and how do you do social media and how do you get, it's gotten so complicated. Like it's so construed versus just how do you just go talk to people
Mhm.
and tell people about what you do. And if you have enough value that you provide to somebody, they'll want it. So I talked to more people than anyone else. That's really what it was. And I was doing seminars and events in my office. And any person I could talk to, I was going and offering my service. I wasn't so worried about what people thought or what people cared about. Was this the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do? I just know this is that when you love the service that you do and you make sure that you really are there to help people, you're not going to be worried about what people say, think, or do. You'll just go and do it. Because if you know you can help people on the other side of it, you're not worried about all the other stuff that comes along with it. So I just talked to more people. and I'd tell more people about it. And I was just on fire every single day. I'd set a goal that I'd go out and talk to people. And before I opened my practice, I went to talk to 1,000 people and built my own database of 1,000 people.
Mhm.
But it was grassroots. That's what it was for me. I didn't
Yeah.
have any money. I had no
Yeah.
choice.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. No, um, explain a little bit, like what type of doctor are you? Like, what do you help people with?
Yeah. So I used to be a chiropractor. I used to be a physical therapist, and I became a chiropractor inside that. And then now, I started studying with muscles, and then I started studying with the nervous system, and then I started studying with thinking because I realized that the whole path, the evolution of the human body, I realized that all thought created illness. And to this day, I'm pretty certain that it is, that all illness stems in the brain and it starts from the brain, the way that we think. And I was just mapping out neurohormones in my office just a little while ago to geek out inside of it. But it's true. It's all going on in here. And I had patients that would come into my office. They would start telling me about their back pain. I'm like, why is it on the third of the month everyone's having back pain? And I'm interested. And I find out why. It's because they're dealing with mortgage issues.
Mm-hmm.
They can't pay their mortgage by the fifth of the month. And they're thinking, okay, what do I do now? And literally, that's how the whole game started. And I started asking different questions. I started piecing together neurophysiology through questioning, and I started to get people to heal themselves. And all of a sudden, their mind body ailments would heal. And I'd get patients with, thyroid issues, diabetes, and all these different types of ailments. And we'd be able to change their blood work and change their and reverse conditions, not to cure anything, but they'd be able to reverse these different conditions that they're having, all by asking the right questions and helping them heal. And then I started applying it to business and entrepreneurship and money, for example, and athletes and celebrities, and that they all started coming to me because if you start to think differently, your actions are going to be different. And so your whole mind body connection becomes one. And any entrepreneur who is in this world today is saying that they don't deal with stress is not an entrepreneur, right? 72% of entrepreneurs deal with mental health disorder. They just don't call it that. We call it stress. That's
Mm-hmm.
it. That's 72% though. That's a huge statistic that's out there that's saying, like, whether you're in real estate, right? With the real estate market going up and down, inflation, interest rate, who knows what's going on? There's stress. That's affecting your health and your neurophysiology. That's how I got into this world.
This is so incredible. I didn't know that backstory. I didn't know the connection between, the chiropractic and how you made that transition. It makes perfect sense because I've always believed that too. Like, you have something wrong with you, you should be able to, change your way of thinking. And that's the way that I don't like going to the doctor or anything like that. Obviously nobody likes going to, but I'm very, very healthy. Don't take any medications or anything like that. And I always try to keep a positive attitude, no matter how bad or how stressful the situation is. I always try to find the positive element in it. What would you say has been your findings with, how do you start walking down this path? How do you start changing that mindset to be able to, start impacting some of those physical ailments? And I would imagine there's probably even an element of, I guess, self-discovery as to, what is it that, is going on in my life? Like you said, on the third of the month, like, yes, this is the problem. But what are some of those steps or those things that you can start doing to be able to start, identifying and curing or not curing, but solving some of these issues for yourself?
Well, first you got to look at it and say what's really causing the issue, right? You got to find out what's really going on. What are you really stressed about? What are you holding on to? And I'll tell you something that you're not going to like, as I say it, Matt. But one thing I'll tell people is stop positive thinking.
Interesting.
Positive thinking is breaking people down and it's causing people more ailments and delusions because everyone's looking for positive thinking. And what it does, the truth is, you can't always be positive 100% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not possible. You'll be positive sometimes, you'll be negative sometimes. But if we're always judging ourselves trying to be positive and never negative, then we're going to put ourselves into a box that we can never get out of. So the reality is that we don't always want to be positive. We want to honor ourselves when we're feeling positive. We want to honor ourselves when we're feeling negative. And what we want to do is we want to rebalance it. What we want is balanced thinking. What we want is the state of governance in our thinking and a state, what I call the aligned state, aligned reason state, where you can actually look at your state and not be torn up or down, high or low, right or wrong, and just kind of be present. And that state of presence, as many people have called it, the flow, the Zen, Mama mentality, whatever you want to call it, that is a scientific process that I take people through now. That it's not just an arbitrary thing that an athlete has to go through. Now I can take people to live there and continue to live there and perform at much higher levels.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So I will say, and I feel like I am very, and I've been told this many times too. I do feel like I'm very even keel, right? Like,
Sure.
something amazing happens and I'm like, okay, that's cool. And something bad happens. I'm like, oh, okay, we'll deal with it. Right. So, obviously there's varying levels of emphasis, I guess you can say one way or the other, but like a lot of people have told me how, that I can't believe you just did that. That's incredible. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm working on this thing next, so trying to
Sure.
go and you know, uh, just try to keep that even keel where it's, not these highs and lows and these big, swings. Is that kind of more along the lines of what you're saying is like, there's great things that happen and you can celebrate that, honor that, feel good about that. But let's not go and like, I'm the king of the world and, I'm conquering everything and, cloud nine way up top. And then, the opposite happens when something negative happens, you're way down here and like, oh my God, I can't, what am I going to do now? So explain that a little bit more. Dive into that a little bit more. I'm
Yeah, I mean, most
curious.
people, it's a very, you're right, right? It's a rudimentary way of of saying it. But yes, I'm not taking away from it, but it is the basic way of saying it, right? That's basically what it is that don't get over elated or over depressed on anything because you always know that there's another side. There's
Mhm.
another day, there's another approach, there's another opportunity. But when we get attached, as the Zen Buddhists would say, right? When you get attached to the whatever you attach yourselves to creates a chaos and you got to let it go. But most people, when you say let it go, can't really let it go.
Yeah.
And they're holding on to it because they're stuck inside of it.
Yeah.
So there's, in my years as an Indian guy, I studied meditation quite extensively. And it's great, it's fantastic. But most people are using meditation as an escape mentality versus really an integrated mentality. So the work that I do is about integrating our reality versus trying to escape it. So
Mhm.
when you integrate it, you don't have to keep running away from it. But yeah, you can transcend it and you can actually be present and you don't get caught up in the emotions and the swings of the highs and the lows and the ups and the downs. And you can just stay governed and stay steady and focus on, as what you're saying, the next thing, what I call your next mission marker, right? Set a mission so big that you just have always something to do. That's
Mhm.
pretty powerful inside that, right? Set a mission so big that you're always moving forward towards what it is you're trying to create. That's part of being inspired in your work.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Talk a little bit about, what you see a lot of entrepreneurs struggling with. What are some of those common issues that come up time and time again? I'm sure money is, one of those things, but, and actually now that I say that, is it really like you mentioned earlier before, um, you help people learn about money and get past money. Is money like really ever the true problem, or is it something in our head that we're blocking ourselves from taking that next step, or whatever it might be? Talk a little bit about that. I guess that relationship there.
Sure, money is the symptom, not the cause. It's never the cause. Money is the symptom of what it is that you have going on. And any type, like entrepreneurs will deal with so many different things, but I would say emotional delusion is probably the first and foremost we have to discuss. And you kind of have to be an entrepreneur, right?
Mhm.
You have to be a little bit positive. You have to be overly a little bit optimistic and saying that, you know what, I've got an idea that I'm going to go take to the world and I'm going to start with nothing and I'm going to put something into it and make it and survive. It is not like a sane, logical brain that processes through that. It's a little bit of an optimistic style consciousness, which is okay, which is great. But because of that, you're also in a state of slight delusions inside that. And so most entrepreneurs don't realize that they're in these delusions of grandeur, and then they make business decisions in these delusions of grandeur. And they think that there's going to be more money rather than managing the money that they have. So with most entrepreneurs is that they don't run out of money. Most entrepreneurs don't run out of money. They over index on the future of the money they're going to create, right? They over index thinking that tomorrow is going to be better than today, no matter what. And there's a lot of people out there who perpetuate this idea and saying, you know what, go and tomorrow will be better. Tomorrow will be better. Tomorrow will be a bigger day. Think bigger. The bigger you think, the better it is. Set a goal that's so big that it scares the crap out of you. All that is nonsense, really. That's really not true. It's not true at all. It's wise to be able to think about tomorrow, but plan for tomorrow, but also make sure you preserve today.
Mhm.
And using both sides of the brain actually allows your business to grow through longevity versus the highs and lows of business, right? And as an entrepreneur, there's a 7-year cycle. Everyone says in entrepreneurialism. The burnout. Well, that makes complete sense because by the time you start going and you hit $2 million, right? Keith Cunningham always said this figure that if you hit $2 million, like that's the pinnacle number in business, that once you get there, you're sustainable. You can sustain and live and the business will grow. And if you can do that within the first 5 years, great. But many businesses never get there. They never get to that point. But maybe you're a bigger business and you say, hey, great, I can get to that level, which is fantastic. But as you get to the higher points, there's more stress to manage. There's more people to manage. And all of that emotional stress of people, places, money, things, management, all those then impede the consciousness of the leader inside that. And so those things then create resentment. And I have a saying that whatever you resent, you resist. And so the consciousness of the leader literally is slowing down the growth of the business because they begin to resent the things that they need to do to grow to the next level.
Interesting. So what are some of, like, how do you identify some of those things that might be impeding you from growing? Is there any like framework or tactic or anything like that you use to be able to,
Yeah, I mean, there's lots. I have 92 different frameworks that I use, but I'll give you one that's really simple. Just look at your business and what do you love about your business and what do you hate about your business? Ask yourself those questions and be very objective and be very mercantile and tactile, right? I hate managing people. Okay. If you said the word, I hate managing people, chances are you have some sort of emotion, some sort of mental block around it that needs to be figured out, rewired so that it's not holding you back anymore, or delegated that you're not doing it anymore. But it's going to create energy and challenge inside the business. And if you constantly have to do that and you're constantly stuck doing that, you're going to hate it. You're going to stop doing it because the brain doesn't move towards what we want it to. It's going to move towards what it is as a point of survival. And if you have a negative relationship with managing people, and then the reality is that you're just going to stay stuck in that state. That's just one example. Of course, there's lots of things that people love about their business and they don't. A lot of times people will start hating customers, right? I remember this when things aren't going the way they want, or it's not the customers they want. They'll start saying, I don't like dealing with these customers because they just don't value what I'm doing. And we put ourselves in this state like we're all almighty in business versus looking at, okay, what is the customer trying to teach us? I like to sit and say, like, a lot of athletes will say that the game is the teacher. I like to say business is the teacher for us to be able to be in a journey of self-actualization, so to speak. Let the business teach us about life, just as athletes let the game teach them about life.
Yeah, I love that. I've never considered the business or your customers as a teacher, but that's a really, really powerful dynamic. I like that viewpoint. Talk a little bit about the other side of this too. Like, we were just focusing on, if you say, I hate, dealing with customers, or I hate having employees, what about the other side where, I love doing this, I love doing that? Like, obviously those are the things that you gravitate toward, and you should probably dive, deeper into those types of positions.
Maybe.
Correct?
I say maybe, because sometimes people will love doing things that are easy. And that's really not good either, right? Because they like it easier because the other stuff is too challenging. So they say, I love this because it's just easy to do. That's not, because you're going to get bored of that. The serotonin is going to go down. At first, it's like eating a brand new bag of potato chips, right? It's like the first time you try this flavor, you try Cool Ranch for the first time. It's amazing. It's fantastic. It's Cool Ranch, for crying out loud. It's so good. And then you have it the second bag. It's like, okay, it's not as good. The third bag, it's Cool Ranch. Great. What about the fifth bag? By the time you have the fifth bag, it's like, it doesn't taste any different because you have sensory adaptation that goes into it. The same thing is happening into ourselves with the work that we're doing. So any person, put them in a repetitive day-to-day job, doesn't allow their brain to grow. So what we want to do is you want to get something that you love to do today, but also you're continually growing at it. Because if you're continually growing at it, what you're going to do is you're going to actually allow yourself to create new brain, new excitement, and you're going to get dopamine to go up and you get excited about that thing. But if it's the same thing again and again and again, there's no excitement to it. That's why most of those jobs can be automated for the better part.
Yeah. That makes sense. How about people that might be struggling in their business. They might be very, very good. And this is, again, a very common thing that a lot of entrepreneurs will do. They're very good at whatever the craft is. So they decide, I'm going to go and open up a business, but the business doesn't do very well. They might love what they do, but, they're not charging enough. And, they have this relationship where, like, if I charge more, I'm going to lose customers, and there's that whole dynamic. Any thoughts on how to get past that part of,
I have seminars and programs and seminars that I do on this all day long. This is a huge thing, huge topic, right? Most people jump into business because they get sick and tired of their employer of the past and they want freedom. And then they go say, you know what, I'll go do it on my own. And they start as owners and operators, right? They started the journey as an owner operator in entrepreneurship, which is great, which how we, like I started there. A lot of people start there, right? We don't understand the point of scale and getting investment money so that we don't do the work and you let others do the work. And that's a whole different level of business and a whole different level of entrepreneurship, which is great, which is amazing. But most of us are small business owners and that's what we do. That's great. So if you're trying to raise your prices and raise your business and raise your growth inside of it, what you want to do is you want to focus on building you want to make sure that you're providing the service you're doing, but you're always delegating the things that you don't love to do anymore down the path. And that's how you're going to grow your numbers in your business. And if you're afraid of losing a customer, you'll never really have a customer. And what I mean by that is because the more you are afraid of losing that customer, you're never going to actually be able to serve that customer with 100% truth of what you want to say. Mm-hmm. And that person will know, and they'll hop to the next person. So it's better. I like to say that your business is for you. It's for you to make a profit. Your service is for your customer. Mm-hmm. So if your business is for you, it better be about making profits. It better be about making income for yourself. And if you're not charging in fair exchange for what you're doing, you're going to create resentment towards the customer. For example, let me just say this. And let's say you're selling cupcakes and it's taking you, I don't know, you get there 4:00 in the morning every day and you go and you make these cupcakes and they're amazing. They're like, the super fancy deluxe cupcakes that are in the marketplace now, right? 20 years ago, those weren't there, but now it's like $5 a cupcake, even $7 ago. I mean, but they're good. I'm not going to lie. They're good. They're not healthy for you by any means, but they're good. You have them once a year or something like that. But if you've put all this work, all this energy, all this time, and you're not feeling rewarded by the business, you'll resent the business. And then you'll resent the customers as a relation to that. So it's wiser to be grateful to the customer and then grateful to the business for what it's allowing you the opportunity to do. If there's some imbalance in that equation, what you'll end up doing is getting angry at the business, angry at the customer, and all of a sudden you'll see your profits and your income your gross sales will start to decline. Mm-hmm. So the key is to change that right off the top. And if you're trying to increase your prices, which is super important to do in today's marketplace for sure, trying to increase your prices, then what you want to do is you have to be okay with charging more than anyone else. And you have to be okay that you actually have to change and rewire your thinking along the path. And I can't do it right now necessarily, but along the path of why it's actually more beneficial to the customer for you to charge more.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's your issue, not the customer's issue, typically.
Yeah. And I'm assuming that this is just like anything else. The people that don't want to pay very much, they end up being the biggest pains, in the business anyway. And, the people that, are willing to pay for the service that they're trying to get, they appreciate that. They understand that, which again is less of a headache for the business owner.
It is, and we're, most of the people listening to this podcast are probably like you and I, right? Like we're small business owners and we're not necessities. What I mean by that, we're not the electrical company. We're not the power lines. We're not, we're not water. We're not hydro. We're not a necessity that everybody has to use us or else they're screwed. We don't have that monopoly, right? It's, maybe, maybe you have a barber shop or something like that. Now there could be another barber shop that goes down the road. But if you look at if you're in your town, if you have ComEd, who else is giving you energy other than ComEd? You can have a monopoly. You can do whatever you want to. And you know what? When push comes to shove, they're going to make sure the lights stay on and they may wait a week or two to get a haircut. Mm-hmm. If that's that's a world, but you can give an example for sure. And that person is going to think about it and say, what's going to keep me alive longer? Because the brain is built on survival, not abundance. It's going to look at it and say, what's going to keep me alive and surviving longer? I need lights for my house. And so what they'll do is it's say, I'll forego the other expense inside that. So if you look at it, then the business says, okay, now I got to wait for this customer around this, unless you're working with a higher end clientele.
Mhm.
The higher end clientele has money and they're actually going to make themselves, their value, their self value, a priority
Mhm.
versus a liability.
Yeah.
And there's a saying that I've been saying it for years, is that your self worth equals your net worth. And if you have true self worth, then what will happen is that you'll actually have a business where you're willing to charge for your haircut, for your whatever it is you do, because you see the value it provides to other people.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And it completely agree. And I think talk a little bit about increasing your self-worth and getting past that temptation to please everyone. I guess that's basically what it comes down to, because if you don't feel that your services are worth as much as what you should be charging to be able to support yourself, there's an element there that is blocking you. So talk a little bit about getting past that element of self-worth and appreciating your skill sets and what you're capable of doing.
The reason people don't appreciate themselves is only one word. It's emotions. And I've isolated 5 primary emotions that we as humans really runs our life, right? We have pride, we have shame, we have resentment, we have infatuation and guilt. Like these
Mhm.
5 primary emotions that we have really run our world. And everything else is an offshoot of that, right? We'll say, what about happiness? Well, happiness is an offshoot of pride. Because if you're feeling prideful about what you did, you just achieved, you accomplished, you're going to be happy. And if you're sad, it's because you feel some resentment or some shame or some guilt inside that. So all of us are built in these emotional psyches, because as we're emotional creatures, we function primarily from the amygdala, especially in highly emotional states. And when we do that, we put ourselves into these states of low self-worth, or what I call pseudo self-worth. Right? Low self-worth is when people are like, you know what, I'm not good enough. I don't know if my service is good. I'm not going to make it. That's low self-worth, and people will say that. But then there's pseudo self-worth. And a lot of entrepreneurs fall under this as well. And it's perpetuated the market. The personal development industry is great for perpetuating this pseudo self-worth. And what it is that, you know what? Just disown half of yourself and just look at the positive side of everything. And you're great. You're going to be amazing. You have all the support. You're going to do great. You're going to be fantastic. You're going to crush it. You're going to do a bunch of affirmations. All of a sudden you feel good. Your dopamine receptors go up a little bit. Serotonin goes up for a little bit, but it doesn't last. And that's why sometimes people will go to events and programs and they'll get super elated for 3-4 days. Like, this is the greatest thing ever. And they come back and it's like kind of right back to the same wormhole that they were in. It's like, what happened? You went to this amazing seminar. Or they'll go to seminars and all the notes, they'll end up in the shelf or in their desk somewhere, because they don't understand that it's not about just feeling good temporarily. It's not a good idea to live in the pseudo self-worth. True self-worth is where you integrate who you are, what you do, and what it does for the customer. And all 3 of them are in a perfect balance of one another. And then you realize that, you know what, the customer is just as much of a service to you as you are to them. And then that's when you create what's called fair exchange between 2 people. And there's a perfect amount of balance between what you've given them and what they've given you. And now you are grateful for that customer. And the more customers you can be grateful for, the more customers you'll get, which means the more money you'll make.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. That's an interesting way. Would you say that it would be fair to be able to, go through your list of customers and, rate them? I'm grateful for this customer. I'm grateful for this one, and maybe not so grateful for that one. Would that be, a useful, I guess, experiment to be able to, get past this thought of, I'm going to lose these customers if I increase my pricing or what have you. But, like you said, you might not be in alignment with that customer anyway, but you're trying to save them and make sure that, you've got this basis that's taking up your time, that then you can't take that time and go after more of those customers that you can actually be grateful for. Um, any thoughts around that? Around
Sure,
that
it's a great
area?
idea. I think it's a great idea. I think there's nothing wrong in that. I think if you look at your customer base and said, can I be grateful for all of them? And if you can't, then you probably want to find people you can be more grateful for. But what's going to happen is you're always going to have probably 80% you're grateful for and 20% you're not, right? Because
Mhm.
Parkinson's law will take over and 20% will be the pain in the rear of your business. So you're always going to have that. It's just the next level of evolution in the business.
Yeah.
So every year, if you did that, then it's great, right? Like I take my prices up 10% every single year.
Mhm.
I do
Yeah.
it every year and I've done it since the beginning of my business. And the reason I do that is simply because I have to evolve and grow. Inflation, interest rates, all these things are there. If I'm not charging more, I'm losing money on the work that I'm doing and I'm losing income. So you have to keep growing and evolving and keep growing your customer base on that as well at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. What would you say that is, I guess what I want to finish with is a tactic, a strategy that you feel a lot of entrepreneurs, could benefit from. And again, I'm not quite sure, where, what you see a lot of people, struggling with, but I'm curious if anything comes to mind, like if everyone took this piece of advice, we'd have a lot more, happy entrepreneurs out there. Anything come to mind with that?
I had a couple of things if I can share them with you.
Sure.
One is I would sit and say, get yourself to objective reality as quickly as you can. Know where you think from. One of the key things is self-awareness is a secret to leadership awareness, I like to say. And if you can't, where your brain is functioning from, then you're going to be able to see, how do I make decisions? Am I making this decisions in a stressed panic state, or am I making them truly in an inspired objective state? And the brain is designed to be able to do that, right? The lower parts of your brain, you've heard this, the amygdala before, that's the emotional center of the brain. And the prefrontal cortex is the logical centers of the brain. And the more we're functioning from here, the more we're on stress and chaos. And the more we're functioning in the prefrontal cortex, the more we have honor and balance in our system. So, what we want to do is make sure that our whole system is coordinated and functioning in the right path inside that. So, if it's okay, I mean, by the time this comes out, they should have tweaked it. But I have a score that I created. It's called the rewire score. And you can actually see exactly what part of your brain that you use. Do you think from the prefrontal cortex, and do you live in a state and make decisions in a state of have to or need to, or excuse me, love to, or do you live and make decisions in pure stress and chaos and need to make decisions? This type of clarity gives you an understanding of kind of where your life is headed, what you want to do, and the path you're going to build around it, right?
Hmm.
And then the
Hmm.
second thing I would do is I would end my day on an evening rewire, evening gratitude. That whatever you think was great, take that off the pedestal so it's not so great anymore. And you can see the downsides of it. Whatever is so good, bring it up on the upsides. And inside this rewire score, at the end of it, as a gift, there's the sheet that I use personally, that I use every single night, and my family uses every single night. And so that's just a gift inside there if you guys want it.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. So basically what you're saying is, you look over the day's, events, whatever happened that day, and anything that was like, way up here, you look at the negative side of that, or the, some of the
Partly.
downsides of that, and then
Yeah, partly.
the negative things, you look at the positive side of that, and it kind of balances you out. Is that basically what you're saying?
It is. What'll happen is your serotonin will go up, your melatonin will go up, you'll sleep better, your nervous system will be better, your HRV will be better, your heart rate will go lower. You'll actually rest in a very restful recovery state. And so there's
Interesting.
more to that sheet, but it's all laid out for people on that sheet. If they
Yeah.
want, they can
We,
download it and get it.
and where do you get the sheet from?
You can just go to rewirescore.com.
Okay. Okay. I love that.
Yeah, rewirescore.com.
That sounds like a really, really powerful tool. And I'm surprised that I never even considered doing that myself, but that's great. I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
If
try it out. Let me know how it works for you, because I do this with my entrepreneurs, my celebs, my athletes, and it just governs their playing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I love that.
it's a super powerful tool.
Yeah. That's very cool. If people want to learn more about you, your products, your presentations, what would be the best way to reach out and get in touch?
Yeah, it's really simple. Just go to drrewire.com or go to YouTube and Dr. Rewire there, or go to the rewirescore.com and learn more about it for yourself inside that. Because once you go inside there, they'll teach you more about kind of what we do inside that. Rewire Score is the best place to really learn about it for yourself. But then if you want to just get information, it's all out there online.
Love it. I love it. This has been fantastic. I appreciate it, and definitely going to start doing some of your exercises, and we'll let you know how that goes. So I love it.
Please do. I look forward to it.